Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We have some news on the Michigan football front, our Michigan Wolverines, as Chris Partridge officially welcomed in as the linebackers coach, and then Sherrone Moore staying with Michigan, being the full-time offensive coordinator. Before we get into it, Dill, I know Dill has a lot of takes on this. We just want to say thank you for you guys, all the support you guys are showing, especially the Michigan fans. Y'all know we rock with Michigan. We like talking Michigan football. The support you guys have shown truly means a lot. So if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate you guys. Over 4,000 subscribers on the channel. You guys and the support you guys have shown truly means a lot. Dill, I'm going to kick this over to you. Early takeaways from these two, no, I shouldn't say new coaching hires, but coaching moves.
I'll start off with saying I love that Chris Partridge is back. And Chris Partridge is one of those guys who you just felt like he loved it. He loved being at Michigan. He loved the program. And I'd always look at like when Michigan won against Ohio State, and that was the year he left to go take the I think it was assistant DC job at Ole Miss is what he ended up being. He was still tweeting about Michigan winning, and like those are the type of guys like, okay, he moved on to he got elevated to a new position at Ole Miss, but still, hey, you felt like he loved Michigan. And the one thing that really made me, I'll go to war for him is when the two coaches, Al Washington and Greg Madison, left to go to Ohio State, he was the only one who said something like how the fans were thinking, like, yeah, that didn't feel like right. That didn't sit right with me. And he said that's how fans think. That's what you want to hear from, I think, your coaches too. You want that honesty, you want that genuineness. And he was the one who gave it to us.
Chris Partridge felt like he was one of those coaches that instilled like that culture we see now with like what Aiden Hutchinson brought to the table. Do you think of guys like Mikey Barrett, like that type of mentality, that ride or die for the program?
That's what he is.
Yeah, Chris Partridge was that dude. And I mean, from a more like overarching view of it, I think this is a phenomenal hire. One, I thought he was really good at Ole Miss. Like that Ole Miss defense made leaps with him as having a fundamental role in that defense. And the main reason he's coming back is he's one of the best recruiters in the game. You take a look at the players that he was either the primary or secondary coach in recruiting. I mean, some of the best prospects Michigan has brought in: Rashawn Gary, Daxton Hill, Aubrey Solomon, Chris Hinton, Cesar Ruiz, Luigi Vilan. Like the list goes on and on. Chris Partridge, the top prospects that came to Michigan, a lot of those guys were recruited by Chris Partridge. He dominates the state of New Jersey, obviously having formerly coached high school football down there. He's one of the best recruiters in the game, and we all know that Michigan and college football in general, you got to get talent into the program. Chris Partridge does that at a very, very high level.
And it does hurt me a little bit to lose George Hilo. I thought he did a really good job at Michigan. He's a guy I liked. I liked his pregame speeches that they tweeted out sometimes and all that. And I thought he did a good job. But at the end of the day, when a guy like Chris Partridge, his job opens up through really no real fault of his own, Ole Miss wanted to hire Pete Golding for whatever reason. You got to bring him back if he wants to come back, because that's a coach who's proven it on the recruiting trail. He's proven it in terms of development. I mean, you couldn't pass him up, but it does hurt a little bit to lose Hilo, because
it was like a mutual parting ways. Like he's gonna go get. I mean, he did a phenomenal job. You think of the linebackers he developed. I mean, Junior Colson's looking like he might be a first-round pick next year. He's done a really, really good job developing those linebackers, and he's gonna be just fine. And it almost seems like Chris Partridge is getting brought in. Like you don't know how long Jesse Minter is going to stay. He's done a phenomenal job. Probably going to get poached at some point. Chris Partridge seems to be like the heir or the next defensive coordinator, and they're kind of bringing him in to kind of get rocking. And then on the other side of the ball, Sherrone Moore, been arguably the most important coach outside of Coach Jim Harbaugh in this turnaround that Michigan has had. You think about where Michigan's had all this success on the offensive side of the football. It's the offensive line, and they're promoting him to, I mean, it was essentially like he's the co-OC last year, an offensive line coach. Now he's the offensive coordinator and still coaching the offensive line. Sherrone Moore, you want to keep him as long as you can, but like at some point, teams are going to come offering him head coaching jobs, and he's certainly deserving, but I cannot understate how excited I am to get him back.
That's why they needed to elevate him. And I'm still not going to lie. The whole thing with Matt Weiss is still just so bizarre. I think I read
Weird.
something
Weird.
this week or last week, maybe I forget when, but he wouldn't go to a meeting with the investigators, and I think that was like essentially to save his job, and he just didn't show up. Like the whole thing's really really weird. I'm not like it almost, and it is like very conspiratorial,
Oh
but
boy.
that's how I think as a fan. I'm just gonna be honest. Like whenever these moves happen, like last year with Josh Gaddis, like yeah, I convinced myself that they fired Josh Gaddis because like I that's just how my brain works in these scenarios. But
Sicko.
I'm not totally convinced that they didn't kind of push Matt Weiss out a little bit to move Sherrone more up to. There's no ambiguity anymore. He is the offensive coordinator, and that is going to help Sherrone Moore get a good job. At the end of the day, I hope he does. He deserves it for sure. I hope he stays at Michigan for another couple of
Oh,
years.
we were talking about if Jim went to the NFL, who are we going to hire as head coach? And I think both of us wanted Sherrone. He's a young coach, and this will for sure help. And the one question you have is like, you don't really know who was calling the plays last year, and it did seem like Matt Weiss had a pretty heavy hand in the play calling of the offense. But you can't deny like where Michigan's had success, the development of the offensive line has been next to none. He's probably done the best job out of any offensive line coach in the whole entire country. And he's also a phenomenal recruiter. That guy's gravitate to. You take a look at what role he used. The primary recruiter in Dax Hill. He's the primary recruiter of J.J. McCarthy, secondary recruiter of Donovan Edwards. Obviously, guys like A.J. Henning, Mozzie Smith, Giovanni El Hadi, like real studs that are in Michigan's program. A lot of it had to do with Sherrone Moore on the recruiting trail. He's the all-in-one. He's a phenomenal on-field coach where I think the players love playing for him. He develops players at an extremely high level. And then he also gets it done on the recruiting trail. You couldn't ask for a better offensive coordinator. And you know Jim Harbaugh is going to have a heavy hand in the offense. And that's good. Like Jim Harbaugh is very experienced with calling plays and working the offense side of the ball, specifically with quarterbacks. And then you have Sherrone Moore, who we're about to be as physical and imposing of an offense next year as anyone in the country.
And again, I think this was necessary for Sherrone's career. He obviously very much deserves it, and this was the right move. I almost think even if Matt Weiss was going to stay, they should have popped him to full time. I mean, he just deserves to be he's not a co-OC. That's not his level. That's not what he's meant to this Michigan program. He is the offensive coordinator. I saw him as the offensive coordinator last year. Whoever was calling the plays, I know they would never admit it, but that's like, if I'm being honest, he deserves to be the offensive coordinator last year, 100%. He's, again, I would put him right there with Jim Harbaugh in terms of moving this culture forward and getting them to where they are now with 2 straight wins against Ohio State, 2 straight Big Tens.
And I think this is a big time day for Michigan football. I mean, like we all knew these guys were in the program, but the dust has settled. We know what roles these guys will be in, and I mean, as a fan, I could not be happier. 2 massive hires, great recruiters, and great on-field coaches. Again, wanted to come on, just talk about it. Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. The Michigan love, the Michigan fans, the Michigan support. We love it. We love talking Michigan football. So if you do enjoy it, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.